Hello folks, this is Jake J. Thomas and I'm here today with Forrest Eggleston, and this is the Energy and Joy podcast. So first off, let me have Forrest here introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Forrest Eggleston. Was born in Carmel, 3 blocks from the beach in Carmel. Yeah, Carmel by the sea. I actually have a longer name. Forrest, Raspberry Sage, Dolphin Tree, Tom Bombadil, McPadden Eggleston. And
Wait. Can we go through that?
Yeah, so
a little bit.
Forrest McPadden Eggleston is what's on my birth certificate.
Okay.
But as I was said, being born at my grandparents' house right by the beach, there was raspberry and sage growing in the backyard.
Oh, wow.
And then three streets down, we got the beach, and there's dolphins, and of course a bunch of trees around. So my dad added the raspberry sage dolphin tree. And then that must have been when I was like 2 or 3 years old. Then when I was like starting to read The Hobbit and stuff, we added Tom Bombadil from the J.R.R. Tolkien books, and he's like the protector of the forest. And I think at some point I asked my dad, could we put something from The Hobbit in? And that was about it. It didn't really get too much like consideration for a number of years until my cousin Sarosh kind of took it and ran with it. And when he visited India, he taught like 25 schoolgirls my full name because they love like Americanized sounding long names, and so they all repeated it, and from there it just kind of grew and became my full name.
Wow, that's a great story. Okay, so grandparents. How did your grandparents end up in this area? What did they do?
Well, they're originally from Glendale, down LA area, and my grandpa had a metal detector shop, Goldak, and then my grandma's mom, my great-grandmother Vivian, she was originally from Minnesota, and I don't know when she came out this way, but she had a little cottage right next to the main house I was born in. And one day she was out gardening, and her neighbor, I guess this is how real estate changed hands back then, which was like the 40s or 50s, he opened the window and said, "Hey Vivian, I'm selling my house." And she said, I'll take it.
Nice.
And so when she passed away at 99, which was like I was 13 years old or something, my grandparents came up they sold their house in LA and moved up to the Carmel house. So
Okay.
yeah.
Wow, interesting. And so you mentioned your cousin, and so
That's my dad's brother's kids.
Okay. And so tell me about your dad and your uncle.
Well, my dad and my uncle are both woodworkers. My dad works on the lathe doing wood turning.
Mm.
You know, it's like a motorized, spins the wood on a chuck, and then you
It's like
carve
to make
like
legs of tables.
yeah,
things like
anything
that.
round, like spinning tops, containers, bowls, goblets, stuff like that.
Mm.
And he's been working out of the Carmel wood shop at the same property where I was born for a number of years.
Wow.
Pretty much my whole life.
So deeply rooted in the region.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
And then my uncle Bob is like a cabinet maker, and he does really fine woodworking, and really accomplished with all kinds of woodworking stuff. And yeah.
That's amazing. I'm curious because I know in your generation, I know at least 3 of you guys are artists.
Yeah.
And so that usually isn't like a coincidence. There's got to be some sort of encouragement or guidance or energy. Or,
Right.
You know, I'm curious, what do you think fostered that potential for you guys?
Well, it definitely, a lot of it started with our Grandpa Herb. You know, he did the metal detector company, but he was like a woodworker, maybe kind of hobbyist style, but he'd make really cool pieces, and that got kind of passed along to his kids, my dad and uncle. And
Okay, cool. So he's sort of the origin of that.
Yeah.
Your grandpa.
Yeah, and he actually also did screen printing for, I guess for the Goldack, they would do certain of their instruments had like screen printed on metal, like because back then printing, like, that was the way that you printed on objects. And so they had a little screen printing department at the shop, but then they would also make like Christmas cards and stuff like that. So
Wow.
That got my dad and uncle into screen printing since way back then. So I'm actually a third generation screen printer.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So your dad and uncle have done that as well?
Yeah.
Wow, what a trip.
Yeah, we have like a binder full of their old Christmas card prints. I guess every Christmas they would print on paper and really cool little designs and stuff.
This is so fascinating to me because it's like, first of all, it's for art. It's hard to find artists, but then when you have a family that's sort of nurturing that, it's like you got to figure out what's going on there, because that's super cool. And especially, kind of like more of like a working class. I mean, he was a business owner.
Yeah.
But small business, entrepreneurial spirit, and just that kind of from the ground up art process is really interesting to me. But it's also interesting that it's a family thing. Like I've been doing some work with Zach Weston.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how like they've carried on the tradition
Definitely
of photography in their family, and so it's almost like you need somebody to give the green light at a certain point.
Yeah.
But so that's really relevant to this whole situation, because part of this today with Forrest here is the origin story of how we even got here to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So your grandfather is responsible for us being here today, in a way.
It's true.
Because he first, in relocating here and starting some screen printing, getting your dad, your uncle into it, led to you getting into it.
Yeah.
Which then leads to Chris getting into screen printing, which is how this place exists. So let's talk about that a little bit.
All right. Well, through that, there's kind of a missing link, which is Dan Heron, who had the Alice in Wonderland shop in Carmel called the White Rabbit. He had that for a number of years, probably 20 years or so. And he's really the one who got me into screen printing. I think maybe it was later that I learned about my dad and uncle and grandma's history with printing, and which just inspired me even more. So like, wow, I have more history with this than I even really knew. And I'd been hanging out with Dan. We would painting canvas, and he lived like 2 blocks up the street from the house I was born at. So I would be over there a bunch, and he had been telling me about his screen printing equipment from up in Washington, that he'd done a bunch of printing up there, and at the time it was in storage while he was focusing on his Alice in Wonderland gift shop. And he kept mentioning, like, yeah, we'll get it out of storage sometime. And then I fell off a cliff in Big Sur. We were hanging out at the spot called the Elevated Beach, where sand gets blown up on the hillside. And
wait, so how old were you at this point?
I was
we gotta slow this part of the story down.
So I was about 20 or 21.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were actually down near Cornucopia, the health food store in Carmel. There's now it's a Subway next door. It used to be a cafe, and there's this courtyard area where my buddy Luke Lamar was painting a mural. And so the cafe was giving us food, and we'd get to hang out there like all night working on this mural. He was really doing all the painting on the mural. I was kind of helping out. And our friends picked us up to go down to have a bonfire kind of party at the Elevated Beach, which we'd been to before. This time was about 30 people, and we're hanging out around the fire, and there's like maybe 5 of us were about to run down the hill to go explore, and all of us being skateboarders and kind of competitive, we were running and jumping over bushes, and none of us thought that elevated beach, there's cliffs nearby. We just didn't consider that. And sure enough, I ran off the cliff.
Oh, wow.
And it was about 40 to 60 feet down.
Oh, wow.
Cracked my head, fractured my skull.
Do you remember the event?
I remember leading up to it. I was I jumped over a bush and it kind of scraped a scab I had on my ankle from skateboarding, and I
you felt that?
Yeah, I gave pause for a moment and think, oh, it stings. Like maybe I should have considered it. And I was like, oh, it's fine. Kept going, and last thing I remember, I guess when traumatic experiences happen, the brain has a way of blocking that out.
Right.
Because I remember after that, I remember coming to down on the beach, and 3 of my best friends came and helped save my life.
They're there pretty quick, I bet.
Yeah, Luke was the first one down, and he, the lighthouse at Point Sur would circle around every so often, and he illuminated me, like crumpled on the rocks down there.
Oh, shit.
And maybe with blood spraying out of my head, looking like I was dead.
Yeah.
He got me up and got my hands in the water, and then I was awake, wandering around. I wasn't in pain or really scared, or I was just...
You were in shock.
Yeah, totally in shock, and complete near-death experience. I was, when my friends were calling for the ambulance, I felt like their voices were coming from light years away in different directions.
Oh, wow.
So with the stars out in Big Sur, it was...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's getting mystical.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I chose to live that night.
Boom.
I participated in saving my own life. I was like helped jump on Travis's back. He would climb up the cliff, we would reposition, get back on, and he got me up there right in time for the ambulance. And
That's dope, dude. I was in a solo car wreck when I was 17. Rainy road, 3 in the morning. Slid a truck sideways, fishtailed, and then overcorrected and slid it sideways into a redwood. And this old truck, no seatbelt, so I went across the cab, broke the window with my head, and cut my neck real bad. But at first, again, shock, adrenaline, popped out of the truck, thought, looked at the truck, I'm like, oh, the truck, oh no. And then I look at my shirt, like, oh no. I sat down, I thought it was the end. But that's interesting. You reminded me when you said I decided to live.
Yeah.
Because I was deciding to die at that moment, and then I said, no, bro, this might not be it. You gotta try it. And so then I decided to live. And so I went up, knocked on the door. This lady opens it up and screams, slams the door.
Yeah.
I don't blame her. I'm just drenched in blood. Next house, knock on the door. All this pot smoke comes wafting out. This guy goes, oh shit. Get a towel, hide the shit, call the cops.
Yeah.
And they brought me in. They put a towel on my neck, and I was fine. And then, you know, everything that came after that or whatever. But interesting that, we both had a kind of a serious accident as we were early in becoming men.
Yeah.
Or becoming adults. Definitely was a pivotal moment for me, and affected my art production and a lot of things. So
having that moment to reference is really something empowering. And there was early in recovery, I was wondering if there would ever be a day that went by that I wasn't affected by it, or that I thought about it. And a few months later, I was pretty much all healed up, and it didn't have negative effects on me through. I came real close to getting brain damage from skull fragments and stuff, but thankfully.
See, and that's one of the things too, right? Because it's like this scar goes right across my jugular, so it's like, fuck, how did I not hit it?
Yeah.
But so it's kind of one of those crazy things where it's like bad luck, good luck. Right? Something very bad happened, but you didn't die, and it easily could have. Like everything led to death in that moment, but we didn't die. And so that's kind of it's an amazing thing, right?
It's a bit of a message in there, probably.
I always took it that way. Well, that wasn't my time. I got stuff to do.
Right.
That's what I felt like. I was like, that energized me. Motivated me. Like, fuck. First of all, slow down, bro.
Yeah.
That was a big thing for me too. And it's not. I don't know that I got the lesson right then, but
same here.
Just in general, that lesson has percolated through my life of like, you get excited, but you don't have to be in a rush. So that was a interesting pivotal moment for both of us.
Definitely.
So, hello, we're being joined here by an artist here at the shop, and so let's have you introduce yourself. Bring that mic a little closer to you.
That's like in your face, isn't it?
We're just telling some origin stories here.
Oh no.
But you don't have to, so...
What kind of origin stories?
So Forrest here was telling me how he got into screen printing, and that led eventually to Chris getting into screen printing and the establishment of this place. So we're kind of just tracing the history back.
I don't know that I had that much interesting history. The cave series that I'm working on right now, I used to do a lot of caving when I lived back on the East Coast.
Okay, but hold on one second. First,
I'm T. Anderson.
Okay, T. Anderson, and where do we find you on Instagram, or how do we...
At Blue T Studios.
Okay, and spell that out.
BLUETEESTUDIOS.
Okay, so at Blue T Studios.
Yes.
And you have a show coming up here. When?
The 12th through the 14th. So this weekend.
So this weekend.
Yes.
Nice.
And been seeing images of the work coming out, looking really cool, man.
Thanks.
So
much left to do. I just built 12 frames, and it's the first time I built any frames, so
wow.
it was big.
Do
Nice.
you make the inner frame and then stretch the canvas on it, or is it the outer frame?
Oh, this is, I have a couple canvases that I stretched. I have a 5 foot by 5 foot that I've stretched, but this is actually like a show frame on the outside, so.
Nice.
So how do you come by the name?
T? Or
Yeah,
Blue?
Blue T.
Well, my name is T.
Okay.
And I used to have a blue period where I had a blue mohawk and a blue beard and mustache, so I just kept going with it. So every artist has their blue period, right?
Yeah.
Nice. And so obviously color is a big part of your content.
Yes, definitely. And I like to do things not in the colors they should be. So if it's an ocean, I'll probably do pink or something different. Nice. I don't like doing the same colors, which sometimes people don't know what it is because it's not the color they expect.
Nice. Okay, so I'm inventing a term as we go. Okay, so I see it as it's chromatic surrealism.
Sure. I'll go with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna coin that.
You can't. I just did, and we recorded it.
Nice.
But I'll give it to you.
Thanks.
You got it, dude. Chromatic surrealism, because that's the strong hit I get from looking at the work is like surrealism, but you can't quite figure out why. But that's why. It's the color. It's the color that makes everything otherworldly.
Sometimes people just say I should have took shrooms, but no.
So how did you get to this point in your process? Like, what led up to this series?
What led up to this series? A lifetime of hardship. No, my wife got me oil paint about 3 years ago, and when I switched from acrylic to oil, my whole life changed.
Nice. Good work, wifey.
Yeah, so color was really a big thing once I got to oil.
What was it about oil that changed that for you, think?
The way it blends and it stays wet longer. I usually, I don't draw anything out before I paint. I just paint it. So nice. I don't make any sketches or anything. And oil allows you a longer time to work with things. It's not dry right away, you know.
For sure. But so to me, that's not intuitive, because a lot of times what oil does is people end up making it muddy. Because it stays wet, and so you end up overworking, and then the colors blend and it gets muddy. Yours is like chromatically bright and brilliant. So I'm curious as to, how did you decide to stay? Yeah, in other words, you had to work against the medium a little bit to get
No.
No?
No, not for me.
Okay.
You thin it down a bit?
I like to do a lot of pellet knife, which I actually add cold wax medium, so I actually make it thicker. And then sometimes I do thin it. It just depends. And then every paint, it has a different viscosity too.
Yeah.
And especially different hues too. So.
All the way.
All the way.
You get
Way live.
comfy with that mic there, T. So, name of this podcast is Energy and Joy Branding. And I'm curious, first of all, with energy, where do you get energy from? When do you feel most energized?
I'm an avid surfer, so I spend a lot of time in the water, and I'm actually starting to paint fins and surfboards. So that's fun.
Nice.
That's like my relaxation place, really.
What's your routine? Do you have a set time you like to go, or?
The ocean tells you when to go,
Oh,
which is something that is not really my style, like having to...
In life in general?
Yeah, I guess I kind of like to just get stuff done.
You like a structured schedule?
Oh no, I don't like it structured. I just pack it full, and if the waves say you can't go, you can't go, and it's like, oh, you gotta wait. So I guess I'm not patient.
Ah, okay, I see.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part is waiting for it to have that window.
Yeah, and you kind of just have to do what it tells you to do rather than telling it what to do.
Yeah.
So.
That's an interesting power exchange for sure. And I mean, the ocean obviously is very energizing, and especially if you're getting a ride from it.
Yeah, somebody, one of my friends is really into grounding, which I'm not a very spiritual person, and I'm not really into that kind of thing, but they're pretty sure I get my grounding from the ocean because of the electrons or negative charge or whatever that is.
Yeah, well, that's science too, right?
Yes.
I mean, grounding it's an electrical thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can't drive your car without it being grounded.
Yeah, telephone poles got to be grounded. So we are electrical beings, and so it makes sense on a scientific level to me that but I just bought that line too, the negative ions.
I jumped in the ocean at Pfeiffer Beach like on Saturday, and I felt a real difference from before. I felt a lot different and better. And the ocean has that effect. So.
Did you do it with a wetsuit?
No, I jumped in naked.
Oh, that'll get you really energized.
There's some energy and joy.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Being out in the elements with nothing, that's raw.
Yeah. I in and out real quick,
Oh yeah. You don't want
When I first
dangle
moved
any
here,
bait out there for too long.
When I first moved here, there was a guy in this Silmar, an old guy, in a Speedo thong, and he was in for like an hour and a half.
Dude, some people are gnarly. There's this guy up at Pleasure Point. He used to go out to this spot called Rockview. Marty the mechanic, R.I.P. And he was a mechanic who had all his stuff on his bike, right? So he would roll up to you and fix your whatever you needed fixed, right? But he surfed every morning at this spot. So he rode his bike out there, went out and caught some waves, no wetsuit, and then started his day as a bike mechanic. And to me, he got a plaque. He's got a plaque there now because people just respected that so much. That was how he started his day. And I just respect the heck
Better
out of
than
that.
coffee.
Oh man, yeah, so much better. Okay, so that's now. What about your style of surfing? What do you like to do?
Well, I'm trying to make a comeback from my latest injury, but
What is that?
I did a Massa Nueve fracture night surfing.
What kind of fracture?
Massa Nueve.
I don't know what that is.
Basically, your fibula breaks and then every bone in your ankle comes apart.
Oh shit.
And unfortunately, it was on a 1 foot wave, but
little one sometimes. Huh?
But yeah, so that was April 20th, and so I've only been in the water for about 3-4 weeks now since then. So.
Well, that must be a nice return, huh?
Yeah. I mainly take my longboard out, so.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm not into big waves and dying.
Yeah.
5-6 foot. That's my sweet spot. So.
So you do it more for the energy, the meditation, the being with ocean? It's not like you're not trying to work on performance stuff necessarily.
Not necessarily, but yeah, a little bit. A little bit. I'm more into just staying alive usually.
It's a good goal when dealing with the ocean. You always have that priority, huh?
Yep.
Okay, but now how does that work? How is that showing up in your work in the painting?
Well, I had done a lot of ocean scenes, but it gives you more of the movement and flow because it's like water, and I think that's kind of how I get my blending style going. It's just, you flow with the energy of it. So I can usually paint a lot better after a surf session than working, that's for sure. So
interesting. So you feel like the ocean teaches you, in a way, about energy and flow?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you gotta move with it. If you try to work too hard against the paint, you get the muddy paint, right?
Yeah.
If you let it do what it wants to do, then you win.
Interesting. Okay, so I see there's some wisdom there in terms of giving some autonomy to the medium.
Yes.
Nice.
You can't really force it to do what it's not gonna do.
Boom. As part of this podcast is about marketing, and it's just really that's kind of encapsulates part of my philosophy, which is that it's not about spamming people or getting your stuff out there obnoxiously, going against what people want. It's finding those places where people want what you're doing, right? So it's sort of respecting like the public as a medium, right? There's parts of that public that want what you're doing.
Right.
And so it's just finding where that energy will fit with what you're doing.
I mean, marketing is what I'm the worst at. It's just not my forte. I need somebody young who's into that kind of thing.
Why do you think that is? What is that?
Well, I have facial blindness. Pretty bad. If I see a picture of myself and I didn't know the picture was taken, I don't know it's me.
Okay, wait, explain that to me. I don't have no idea what that means.
It's something like propaganasia. It's basically I can't remember faces.
Okay.
So like even people that I work with will come in and tell me who they are, because I don't remember what people look like. So even myself. So.
Wow.
It sounds like that's an extreme form of, like, I've heard varying levels of that, and people having like tricks, mnemonics, or something where you attach something to like help jog the memory. Do any tricks like that work for you?
It's not like if you took one face next to the same face and you moved the eyes closer in one or the other, I can't tell that they're any different. So mainly it's like hair or talk or people's gait. But I went up to Bodega Bay and I was surfing North Salmon Creek, and me and my friend stopped at this fish market up there. And I went in to get something in the restaurant because we were sitting outside, and this girl came in, and I'm like, oh, they're kind of cute. And I get back to the table, and it was my friend. I had no idea, and I went there with them.
Wow.
That's like some memento shit, dude. That's an interesting, trippy way to go through the world.
Well, a lot of people think like you're just rude. They're like, oh, I'm not interesting enough to remember, or and it's like, no, I just literally can't. So it's one of the reasons I usually don't paint people. I tried to get away from that in a couple of my cave paintings and actually paint people, but like they're just not interesting to me because they all look the same.
Okay, well that may be the case, but I want to see your portraiture now, dude, because to me that's fascinating.
Well, there's a self-portrait in the shop right now. It's that I did 5 years ago. That's like, it looks like a hammerhead shark kind of on the wall. So I don't do realistic self-portraits.
Not yet, but I don't know, dude.
I mean, I don't know that
there.
I could.
But that's exactly why I'm curious, because it's just going to be different. Whatever you do in that realm is going to be different. And I would see that as a gift, right? Because, there's this book called The Gifts of Imperfection, Brene Brown. And it's kind of like the things that we sometimes see as our faults are actually maybe our superpower, especially as artists, right? Because, T, I knew you were different from your work. Because I looked at it and I go, first of all, I just want to compliment you. I think the work is
Thanks.
Top notch, dude. And I just genuinely resonated with it. But that's why I love doing a podcast, because I had no clue who you are. I just knew I liked the work, but now it's way more compelling to me.
Yeah, around this area you get a lot of like the Carmel artists who do just the seascape and that, and kind of want to bring something different than the Lone Cypress over and over again.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And that's interesting too, because so this area I'm getting to know, and it's very, I love it. It's so interesting, but there's a lot of things about it that are curious to me, as far as like there's a mixture of a lot of different things, right? Like there's old art from turn of the century. There's the West, and it was an artist colony. There's Jack London wrote about the artist colony here from way earlier.
There's
right?
Robert Louis Stevenson also.
Robert Louis Stevenson. So there's this like old tradition of art being made here, but then this also is where this place sparked the hippie movement, right? The pop festival, Jimi Hendrix playing, inspired Woodstock, and so many people came across the country to the West Coast, and so then you have this sort of interesting, funky hippie element here too, right? And but then you also have so much money here, right? You've got Pebble Beach, you got this, so it's just a strange, interesting combination.
And then you got the military.
And you got the
large
military.
military presence.
Yeah. So to me, it's like this really interesting kind of gumbo soup that I can't quite figure out yet. But getting to know you, I can see how in that soup of things you would want to be yourself, which is different than a lot of the other things, right? Like in Santa Cruz, we got a strong tradition of plein air painting as well, which I don't want anything to do with myself, because that's not what I resonate with. But so that's cool. So differentiating yourself through color, still doing the landscape, but painting from imagination. Yeah.
Yes, definitely from imagination. And sometimes I have a very bad sleep. I suffer from chronic nightmares. I usually have 8 to 14 a night, which I'm told is not possible, but it is. So sometimes I try to stay on the lighter side to kind of balance that part of my life a lot. So.
Interesting. So you go for a less harrowing subject matter. I'm gonna keep it a little bit more whimsical, a little lighter.
It just the balance. You gotta have balance in life, I don't need to relive the nightmares. I live them every night, so having something a little bit more positive helps.
Have you just accepted that you're gonna have nightmares forever, or do you have any?
I'm pretty sure I have some kind of neurological disorder. Well, that's what facial blindness is.
Oh.
And I also suffer from familiar tremors, so which is another neurological thing. So I just assume there's some part of my brain that's damaged from being premature. Or maybe when I fell into my bunk bed when I was little, I could only see black and white for one day. Like everything was like a black and white TV. And,
Wow. While you're awake, I've heard of black and white dreams.
Yeah,
I've never in waking life.
It's actually a type of color blindness, and there is a painter who suffers from facial blindness too, and it's that kind of color blindness does have facial blindness with it too. But he actually paints portraits, I don't. So luckily my color came back. So maybe that's why I paint in bright colors, because I saw black and white.
You lost it for a little bit, like, fuck.
Yeah.
Let me get back to that. Interesting. Yeah, that's super interesting. And so how many pieces do you have for the show?
20.
20 pieces?
Yes.
Big
20.
body of work.
It's a huge body of work. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Still got a lot of prep left to do, but so I took Tuesday through Monday off so I can prep and then have a day of recovery.
And then what are the price range for your work? Do you have a... It's for sale, right?
Yes, everything's for sale for the right price. Right? I think my cheapest piece right now is about $600, and then my top end is $1,600. So there's a big range.
Yeah, so for any art collectors out there, this is a good opportunity to start collecting this very interesting and individual artist here. Definitely if I was in the position to be starting an art collection, I'd grab one of your pieces, T.
Well, there's always prints. They're a lot cheaper. So,
Okay, well, I'll grab one of those.
Awesome.
Yeah. And what else?
I want to hear about the cave stuff.
Yeah.
At some point.
Okay, so I've been in California for 11 years. I grew up in Pennsylvania. So I did a lot of caving when I lived on the East Coast. I've done over 500 different caves. I used to do mapping. I do dig trips. I found Pennsylvania's largest anthracite crystal. That was pretty cool. I have a buddy in West Virginia that has a cave. You could fly 737 through it. And you can't see the ceiling or the walls. It's got a double horseshoe waterfall in it.
Whoa.
I fell 40 foot in that cave and broke my tailbone. But that was...
That must have been scary.
Yes, but it was the first time I went to do that cave, and I wanted to be able to come back to do that cave, so I caved for another 6 hours, but I could not stand and sit for 8 months.
Wow.
So
what's your passion for caves?
Everyone is different. It's kind of like every break is different, So I'd have ones where I'd have to take the helmet off and squeeze through a really tiny hole, or ones where you rappel. Did some French arm rappelling one time, which is intense. So
Wow.
no, they're all so different.
That's amazing. And so you obviously are comfortable without being able to see much, yeah? Or it's pretty dark in there, yeah?
Yeah, it's I went ziplining. My wife went for the first time, and the guy's like, "Oh, at night we went," and he's like, "Turn off your lights. It's so dark." And I'm like, "No, it's not."
Yeah, right.
You haven't seen anything dark until you turn your lights out in a cave.
You're a connoisseur of darkness.
Yes.
That's interesting.
That's a much more extensive caving history than maybe anyone I've ever talked to.
For sure.
My favorite cave is called Warm River in Virginia. So they're all private caves. I don't like commercial caves.
Whoa.
But Warm River is it's a cold spring and a hot spring, and then they form an 85-foot waterfall. But you have to swim down 14 foot and find the hole in the wall, and then when you come up, you're in a whole nother cavern, and then it's got rimstone dams that are big hot tubs, and most people go naked back there, but I never wanted to fall. And, yeah. I never wanted to fall in a cave naked, so I was like, nah, that's not for me. But
yeah, I'd take my clothes off before I even got in the mouth of the cave at that point.
Well, no, because it's cold till you do that dive and come up, then you hit the hot spring. So.
Dang.
And then how do you get out?
Same way you
You're
came
not
in.
back through that hole?
Yep.
Going against the current?
Yep.
Wow.
Is there any air? How do you breathe in there?
In
is
a
there
cave?
a hole out the top of where you go under the water? There's got to be some
I mean, there's probably critter holes somewhere.
critter hole. Damn.
There's not
sounds
another
real scary.
entrance back there.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds pretty frightening.
I mean, it depends on the cave. Some you can do 3 trips, drop in one entrance, come out the other, and some you got to go in the same way you came out.
Yeah.
I've done a bit of cave exploring out in Big Sur and when I was traveling in Vietnam and Laos.
Nice. What kind of caves do you do in Vietnam?
There were some really big caves in Vietnam where I was looking at guided tours. We didn't end up doing that, and now I'm kind of unclear on actually if I did go to caves in Vietnam. No, I did. There's in Cat Ba Island. There's a spot called the Hospital Cave where during the war they were using it as a hospital and a spot to hide from the bombs, and it was cool. We did some light painting in there. I set up the camera on a tripod with a slow shutter and had some color change LEDs, and we're painting in the hospital cave.
Oh,
And
nice.
they had rooms like cement rooms with hospital beds and mannequins to kind of show what it used to be like during. So yeah, that was the one I totally remember.
So were you photographing the light painting? Just doing long exposure?
Yeah, I have a little series of photos. Wrote Cat Ba on the wall And
those would be cool to see.
Yeah.
I've seen those for
yeah,
sure.
I'd like to share them with you.
Yeah, we gotta get those up somewhere.
Yeah.
The only the cave that I broke my tailbone in, when you hiked in for 8 hours, and then they had a base camp, and they had a still, and they had their big blown up air mattress, like queen size air mattresses and stuff. So that was pretty neat. But no hospital caves. No.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to be like a tuberculosis, just hide the people.
So we've been joined by Chris Powers. How's it going, Chris?
That's me.
We were kind of discussing some of the origin stories. So Forrest was telling me about.
That's how caves came up, huh?
Cave
He
people.
joined us.
Yeah, it's interesting parallels for sure. You would never think, but there's definitely some interesting parallels here.
Nice. They're both kind of gingers too.
Me?
Yeah, you dye your hair brown. We all know it, too.
No, I didn't. No, I have dated 13 redheads and married one, so.
Whoa. Lucky number 14. I've heard that story before. Actually, pre-shop in the park.
Oh yeah, the
parking lot
origin
barbecue
stories.
at the house.
Yeah.
I heard the redhead break off. That's T's delight.
Apparently.
That is fascinating. I never even knew about facial blindness. That's a new one to me. So that puts a whole different little twist on looking at your work.
I thought he was making it up when he first told me about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still skeptical about it a little bit.
Right. It's just a brilliant excuse.
It's good. I don't really care what you think.
Get that a lot. Oh man, awesome.
So let's go back to where you guys met.
Let's not do that story. We lived in the same trailer park.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he was talking about Forrest and I, but this is actually maybe even a better story, to be honest.
Let's do Forrest and we can skip mine.
Let's kick it off with the trailer park.
Yes, to the trailer
That's
park.
a nice starting point.
Trailer park boys.
We were having a barbecue in our trailer park driveway, and my girlfriend and our roommate Bianca were lit to the point where they're standing in the driveway trying to give anybody that walked by or drove by a shot of vodka lit,
Okay,
you know?
nice.
And T fell victim to that.
Oh, wow.
And I was thinking about the other night, actually, I was looking at some of your art on just on Instagram and like the flyers for the show that's coming up this weekend and stuff, and I was like, remember thinking, like, in meeting you in a trailer park and dealing with my girlfriend drunk and you drunk and everybody drunk, and you were telling, I think I was like going off and painting or airbrushing and like doing my own thing and like kind of coming back out to the barbecue, and you were like, oh, painting, and you started talking about painting, and I remembered thinking like, this dude is full of shit. Like, I don't want to like hear about his fucking painting bullshit. Like, and then like when I was looking at it the other night, I was like wondering to myself, like, dang, I wonder how many people I've like brushed off as being full of shit that are actually super talented artists that are, you know, developing like into this time. That was like maybe 2 years ago I met you, 2.5 years ago.
Time
like
is
that.
not good with me.
Yeah,
so.
something like that. And like, you know, now like you're an artist I highly respect, you know, and definitely a large part of our mix here in the shop. And like thinking back to like you drunk and telling surfing stories and then talking about paintings and me just like brushing you off as like maybe a dude that had a cricket machine in his house and like I don't know, it was a weird like flip around. I actually noticed that last night in my head, like pretty crazy.
That's such a cool point to make too. I've definitely had that experience numerous times where I didn't appreciate what somebody was from initial impressions, and then over time through the work, like, whoa, there's a lot here.
It's heavy. Yeah.
Well, I will say that was a very bad impression of me.
Oh, I mean that was the best you I've seen yet. Like, that was the you I'm trying to kick it with.
But that's like first impressions matter, but they also sometimes are very not revealing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was thinking about that too. I broke a little bit further into that. I was like, dang, I wonder if like just the connotation of being in the trailer park, like
the context.
Attributed to it, yeah.
The context, yeah, for sure.
Or if I like took that in as a thing, like this is what we are because we're here, you know. And I considered myself an artist and respected myself, but like I looked at people that were in the same place as me as like, that's impossible because we're in the trailer park in Seaside, you know, like when he's more legit painter than I am by a long shot, you know. It's an interesting way to like, I don't know.
It's a good, good self-reflection as far as like where we make our judgments and when we're wrong, because sometimes you can be wrong the other way too, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah, fully.
You think somebody is like solid, respectable person, and you know, and it turns out they're scumbag.
Yeah, fully.
Or you find out they have a bunch of other people doing their work, and then they just sign it.
And I think, I mean, and Teal really recognized about this, but big shout out to Phil, the gardener in the trailer park. I think he hasn't got the recognition he deserves based on the fact that he only gardens in the trailer park. He's super OG, you know. If you ever get a chance, swing by Phil. Get him to do your gardening.
That's rad. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different workers who are doing amazing stuff and go unappreciated.
Yeah. Or overappreciated because they're doing work in a place that gives them that look, you know?
Oh, so true, man. The way we value work differently based on context.
That's why I'm a strong advocate of the shop maneuvering our next location or hub being an art gallery in Carmel. It'll put a, you know, a times 10 on the value of any piece as long as it sits.
I think that's
in
really
that
smart
1 square mile.
And having this as like a place of production and creation.
Yeah.
Because there's kind of that too, right? Like.
Yeah, fully.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great combo.
Yeah, I don't think we could. I mean, maybe we could, but I don't think we could have easily as built this kind of environment in Carmel right off the bat.
Right.
But like using this to launch off and then start maneuvering that, I think is going to help us a lot, you know?
Sounds like a great plan.
Like working around the edges and closing in on.
Exactly.
And I had an art studio in the barnyard for a couple of years, and I would call it East Carmel.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a difference between that 1 square mile of downtown Carmel and the rest of Carmel. It's almost like I'll break it down to like anything that's east of the Valley Road is like Carmel Valley at that point, you know? Or sorry, east of Highway 1 is Carmel Valley, and anything south of the bridge by Safeway right there is Big Sur. You know, and then like even the neighborhoods like the hills or like around Carmel, like Pescadero and all that stuff, is like, you know, that's just like Airbnb territory. Like, it's like different, like you don't even have to like deal with that in the commercial way, but that's like a whole nother ballgame
zone.
But yeah, like the crossroads and the barnyard are like super rad, especially the barnyard. The crossroads is cool, but still like maybe trying a little hard to hold on to that downtown Carmel thing without the downtown Carmel clout, you know. But the barnyard's like a super special place. It's got some charm down there for sure.
Okay, and so then let's jump into how you guys met, Forrest and Chris here.
Yeah,
Carmel, downtown.
Yeah, a name that won't be revealed on camera because he's part of a predominant family in Carmel Valley. Referenced me to find Forrest as a good person to get stoned with.
Oh, nice.
And
so the love of cannabis.
Yeah, at the time, yeah. I'm not a cannabis hater. I don't use it anymore. But yeah, I was like, you know, I mean, searching for the next joint every day, like at the time, you know, and I like kind of heard stories like the legend of Forrest, you know, and like redhead dude, like doing this stuff, and
Whoa. Say more. What was the legend of
I mean, there's like a varieties of
this redhead dude doing stuff.
Right, varieties of
Richard.
things like we'd have to do a whole nother podcast, but I mean anything from, like falling off of cliffs to intentionally jumping off of cliffs and skateboarding and just being a savage and
Being a wild
all
man.
kinds of
A wild boy.
A wild boy, yeah.
Yeah.
A wild
Yeah.
boy, but also like living in the heart of downtown Carmel, like
A wild
as a
boy.
functioning like underground artist that you could get stoned with. Like, I mean, put all that together, and this is like pre-weed being like you could walk down. I could walk from here to the bottom of Ocean Avenue with a quarter-pound jar of weed in my hand, and a cop probably won't even stop me.
Right.
Like this was like, you might get wrapped up for a 10-sack time. So this is
Right.
like 16 years ago. So
Yeah. It was a whole different world.
but I was working at a coffee shop right down there.
The Carmel
On
Plaza,
Ocean.
which was right near my
No.
apartment. Or
this
no,
is-
different.
I was I was like kind of bouncing back and forth between their Ocean Avenue location and the plaza, but when I met him, I was working at the Ocean Avenue Carmel Valley Coffee Roasting Company right there on Ocean, and I'd like gone out and I was like smoking a cigarette for the break, and I seen this like short little, he was wearing like a triple XL everything, kind of like just like swimming in his clothes,
They call it oversized. now.
Oversized, yeah, plus size. Walking up the street.
And that was like a skateboard vibe, or skateboarder, or just his own vibe?
His own, like,
His
I mean,
own
maybe,
thing.
yeah, he's a skateboarder and he was doing it, so definitely there was a skateboard vibe, but we hadn't met at this point, or even, like, known what each other looked like, and he
You
was...
had a bit of a description on me, though.
Yeah, I had
Skateboard,
but
red
like,
hair.
I mean, I hadn't seen a picture of you or anything,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, redhead skateboard dude. But even when I met him, it was like kind of different than what I don't know. I pictured something a little darker, like in like the way he carried himself. But that's not what was like brought to attention when I seen him. I pictured someone as maybe like skirting on the edges of society, and he was like plowing through with like 10 extra yards of fabric on him that he shouldn't have had. Like it was
Nice.
it was definitely different than what I pictured. But he was walking up and he had a 2x4 with trucks on it, like a good size one, like maybe this big, with trucks, and maybe even longer. I don't know this thing. And I was like, hey, Forrest. And then he just like walked up on me like we were homies, like, oh, what's up, dude? That type of, and we just started kicking it pretty tough. Like, I feel like we started hanging out pretty tough, like almost every day after that,
Nice.
Yes.
What year was this around?
It would have been 2005, 2006.
Yeah,
That's when I had the apartment.
2005, I'd say, like, was the time, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that, just looking back real quick to what you were saying before of like first impressions and how people change the more you get to know them.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's so valuable to have long-term relationships in the
Fully.
arts, right?
Fully.
Because you can't replace that, and like
Yeah.
being able to trust somebody
Absolutely.
in this industry is so key.
Yeah. Being able to trust somebody
Period.
in anything where you're doing something that's above the bottom tier, Like when you're when there's nothing, it's like if you're
Nothing to
going to
lose.
clock in and you're like maybe trying to get like $1 raise over the course of a year, and like no matter what that looks like, if you're getting $500 an hour or minimum wage, like there's something a bit of a disconnect, and like there might be some politics in those $500 an hour jobs for sure, but there's, even if we make $5 in a day, we're you in this industry and in any industry where you're making moves for yourself, you're dealing with politics of great intensity for like any level of or amount that you're making. So yeah, finding a solid core community and people that you can not only hang out with as your friends, but operate, maneuver, and make money with is crucial.
So key.
Not just for the rising up, but which is important too. Like having a dude for everything you do, or a chick or whatever, like a person that can actively do something better than you or make what you're doing better, but for like the sanity of like having friends, It's,
exactly. Yeah. Somebody who understands what you're going through and can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super key.
Definitely.
So, back to the scene on the beach, real quick, Forrest. So, that was a rough moment. I imagine it was probably rough for your friends, maybe even more than you.
Yeah.
What eventuated from them from that experience? Was that, you still know them? Still?
Yeah, actually, I just came back to Monterey Peninsula from Humboldt, where my buddy Travis, who was the one who was the most instrumental in saving my life that night, Travis Barter, he has a ranch up in Humboldt where he's been growing weed up there for the last 18 years or so, all organic, sun-grown, mountain style, and so I was up there for the last year and a half or so, and yeah, we've been really good friends before that experience, and we both have orange hair and participate in similar activities, and
better watch out, T's gonna be after you.
He perked up, he's like,
hey, orange hair, doubles, twins.
Wrong gender. Sorry.
Yeah, we were bound to be lifelong friends. However it was gonna go.
Nice.
That night though definitely
Cemented
created a
it.
bond of brotherhood in a different way.
Yeah.
And there was, every time I talk about this night with someone who was there, I tend to learn another snapshot or view of it, and a little detail or something. Even when I tell the story again, I tend to bring stuff up,
Yeah.
And I was having breakfast with Travis and some friends up north, and he told me about how, they had initially gotten to me, splashed the water on my face and my hands, and had me lucid and walking around. And this was 2003, so cell phone service was spotty, like it still is in Big Sur. Somehow it was one of those Nokia brick phones that has, like, I guess it has good copper wire or brass wire in the antenna. They were able to get a call through.
Shout out
Nokia.
Yeah.
And it was too foggy for helicopters, but an ambulance was on the way. And I'm sitting there next to Travis. We're down at the beach, and Highway 1 is up there, a ways up at this point. And Travis is sitting next to me. He said he was thinking about procedure and how when they showed up, it would be search and rescue, and they would, roll out all their ropes and equipment, and because of the way procedure works, he basically was looking at me, and he's, Forrest is dying, and if I don't get him out of here, he's gonna die. I can't wait for search and rescue. And so he started spotting a course, and we ended up climbing up together, maybe the first 10 or 15 feet, and I jumped on his back, and then he carried me out and up a really steep cliff where he's one of the most capable, athletic, like tree climbing, like flipping an axe around, all kinds of stuff. He's beyond average with all that stuff.
You're gonna fall off a cliff. You need a dude like that around.
Yeah, he's like the best person to have. And he said that there was a moment when he was digging his hands in, like hard packed dirt, slippery, and struggling with everything he had and my weight on the back to get up. Yeah. And he reflected on all his time training for wrestling, and he thought that he had goals of like the Olympics or whatever that was all leading towards, and he realized in that moment all that training was for this moment right now.
Yeah.
It's
heavy.
That's heavy.
Yeah, and he got me up out of there. They put me on a stretcher, and then because of procedure, they he handed them over to me. They put me on the stretcher, and when they were passing me over the barbed wire fence, they had my head tilted downwards and my feet up, and he said blood was coming out of my head like a faucet. He's like, well, guys, I just brought him all the way up here. You're going to do that?
Don't kill him now. Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, the cool part about it, and Forrest doesn't really tell this part of the story moving forward in the years, is he didn't learn his lesson about falling off a cliff. Like, he's like due for a cliff fall any minute now. Like, he likes falling off a cliff. It was like something changed in his brain that night that made it so not as big a cliffs maybe, but like he likes to take like a good 15-foot slam periodically, maybe even a little bit bigger if he can get his hands on it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just...
What's that about?
I'm not so sure that it's... what it's about. It
But it's
definitely
true?
has to...
It's true?
Yeah, there's some truth to that. It must have to do with skateboarding and throwing oneself around in different terrain, especially the style of skateboarding that is what I'm about with dirtboarding. Learning how to fall in dirt and slide and roll with it, and I guess just taking that to different terrain, getting that kind of ragdoll, loose, tumble action in where you can to kind of train for
Prepare yourself
for the inevitable falls that'll happen in dirtboarding.
So you're part of that whole movement.
Yeah.
He is that movement.
Is that right?
Maybe the baseline of that movement.
Wow. Because when you talked about the 2x4, that made I jumped there immediately.
Yeah.
That was when I was riding more like street skates more often.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that was actually the coffin board. Because I had a coffin.
It was definitely a piece of lumber.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, first, I didn't even notice the trucks when you were walking up at first. Like, why is there a 2x4 in this weird little ginger guy's hand, And then I saw the trucks, and it was like, I know who this dude is.
Yep.
100%.
Well, okay, so Forrest, I want to get into your art practice a little bit, too.
Okay.
Because, before I met you, I was just looking around the shop. I was looking at that work, and and the paperwork in the corner was interesting to me, but I wasn't aware quite that it was a work. And
Yeah.
the plywood one, I've definitely been compelled by standing outside there just looking at it. To me, I wouldn't even know how to describe it, but it just looks like art. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I see it, it's like just cool art. But you're working with different media, you're working with different... So how do you even begin something like that? Like,
loose, keeping it loose, and I have different... I guess it depends what medium I'm working in. Like the final result, what it's going to look like. But usually if I'm painting or drawing or airbrushing, I'll start really loose and just kind of go wild with the line stuff, and then see something in there and start carving out more, adding color, or and I can do that without thinking about it or planning it. And I'd like to refine and focus in on certain other styles at some point. For now and for over the many years, it's been something that often, I guess, if I'm a bit inspired or feeling in the right mood, I can do it without really having to think about it too much. And that's just that's what happens.
That's dope. And so you've got that chromatic surrealism, your own style, and that sort of is coming out of the tradition of surrealism, and maybe like Bay Area, the use of color is kind of related to that. But then Forrest, you're working abstract.
Yeah.
And that to me is interesting. I love abstract work, but you almost see it as like it's hard for people to know an entry point into it. You know? And I think partly it's almost like people at some point start out thinking that art is like a talent contest.
As like a purchaser or as a creator?
Both.
Because I think that doing like something that's looking real is like a way harder to find an entry point into.
I do both abstract and like chromatic.
Whatever, trailer guy.
So-
You're probably just lying.
Yeah, totally lying. No, but I like doing the abstract because it's completely outside of your head, and you don't really have to. You can just be free and flow.
You don't have to reference stuff so much or plan it, or maybe.
And sometimes it just looks like crap, and then you just paint over it.
Paint over extra layers, extra texture for the next piece.
A lot of times I'll use that kind of painting as an undercoat.
Yeah.
And can scratch some textures into it and bring that layer out. So.
I'm gonna break off, guys. I just want to stop in and say what's up.
Right on, Chris. Good talking to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Gang. Bitches.
But so part of what I'm curious about with the abstraction is, did you like abstract work before you started doing it?
Yeah, I guess I was originally influenced by kind of like graffiti stuff and characters. One of my best friend Gabe Severson's older brother Eli had this friend Jamie Brill, who's from Ohio or Cincinnati, and he did a bunch of spray paint bombing and painting and drawing these characters, these faces, and he actually showed me the loose, kind of like I guess with a pencil or pen, doing a quick. Maybe you've seen like for face for cartooning, there's like the oval and then the lines where the eye, the nose, and the mouth go.
Yeah.
If you do kind of a quick
Like
jumble
gestural
of
drawing,
you can do these intertangled lines, but forming a rough kind of head or globe shaped, and that's the start for picking out an interesting face and find out where the eyes or nose, lips go. And I was really inspired by his stuff, and I started messing around with that style, and pretty much just that's been like a basis of a lot of my work. So it wasn't his is more refined. Like I tend to have just an excess of lines that last through to the or they carry through the piece, whereas his, you didn't see so much of that. Maybe it was lighter in pencil, and then it would like really define other looks. He would do like a turtle or other dinosaurs and different stuff, and so was I looking at abstract art, or I don't know, and that's, I didn't ever really think of it as I'm looking to do art so much. It was, like I said, being inspired by the kind of graffiti type culture. It was also with skateboarding, and then backpacking, hiking. I wouldn't think I'm going out to go for a hike or I'm participating in hiking. It was just an activity, something I was naturally drawn to, and I feel like that's kind of how it was with art too. I didn't like think of it as even doing art. It was an activity. It was kind of, that was fun and cool, and that my friends or people that I looked up to and was inspired by were doing something that I wanted to do also, and I started doing it without giving it too much thought or planning, and I didn't know where it would go. Then I started learning about different mediums, and screen printing came along, and then printing in general, and found that get some good responses to some of this stuff, and just kept going from there.
What were some of the early good responses?
Well,
I'm curious. Well, the reason why I focus on that is because back to the energy and joy.
Yeah.
Sort of, we do this stuff partly because it gives us energy, but then when there are certain things that help to amplify that, right?
Definitely.
Like even you don't do it for the money, but making a sale, like somebody making valid your effort by choosing it and putting some money behind it, that gives you some joy, right? Like, oh, I got to do another painting now,
right.
And now this one exists somewhere, somebody's going to enjoy it.
Yeah, having someone see something in your work that you created that you didn't even see, and hearing them describe it to you, there was an early moment when I had that happen. I went to Carmel Valley High, and they had a pretty cool art class where there was all kinds of free. It was my first time having access to all these tubes of paint and a room where I could just get loose with the stuff and not have to procure the supplies on my own. And that really opened up a lot of freedom to experiment and have fun.
Wow. You see that, arts institutions, schools, that, that's just evidence that works.
Yeah.
Fund the arts.
Fund the arts,
yeah.
man.
Fund the arts.
You put someone on a path that they will continue for the rest of their life. And just that opportunity, that moment, the origin story, that's so key.
Yeah.
I had a teacher in 7th grade, and I had liked doing art, but I always hated my art. And she taught me the value of contrast. And then I was specifically like a charcoal drawer for a long time after that. But I probably would have gave art up if it wasn't for that one teacher.
Nice. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And that's a great reminder too of like the impact that you might have on other people, right? It's like be kind and generous when you can, if you want to be that that element in somebody's career. I mean, no, obviously it's got to be authentic, right? It wouldn't have worked if that teacher didn't really see something. But when you see something, encourage it. We're all in this together, and we help each other. So the little moments like that, finding a moment in your own story where somebody made a difference is nice, because it illustrates how easy it is to make a difference. It's free.
Literally like 60 seconds. Like literally, hey, you can just add some charcoal. Wow. That was about it.
Boom. And then boom, you're off to the races. Well, okay, now what about T with your abstract work? How did you come to want to practice that kind of style?
Well, I had started abstract first because I just didn't like being stuck in a box. I didn't want to have to try to make something look like something.
Some freedom, yes, okay.
Just really, actually, my surrealistic stuff I've been doing is probably only about a year old, maybe 2. I just found abstract more free, and I actually think it's harder to make something abstract look good because people don't know what it is. So they don't, if you make something and somebody can relate to it, they're more likely to be like, oh, I like that because there's something they can relate to. If it's abstract, you gotta make something compelling that somebody has no idea what it is. It's just a jumbled bunch of whatever.
Yeah.
And if you can make that work, I think that's a lot more impressive than doing, why do something photo when there's cameras? Everybody got an iPhone.
I totally agree. But I think that's why I was asking how you get into it, because that is a barrier, right? Because for other people, it's like, I think non-practicing artists or just the general public kind of view art in general as like a talent show. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh, how good at this are you? And that's where the value of the thing is going to be, as opposed to, if you're creating something that has no reference, it's not really comparable to anything, how do you know how good it is? It's only in reference to your own work, right? And so it's harder to get people to enter into the story of what the work is about, to see the merit of it, because at first they go, I don't see skill, I don't see talent immediately, because they think, well, drawing is like representing something. And so it takes them longer to recognize the language that's working in abstract work, to see, oh no, this is talent, this is artistry, this is mastery of its own language, right? So it's like, I really strongly guess that I could recognize your guys' work if I just saw it out in the world, because you have a language, right? And it's an abstract language. So even in the work you're doing that's realistic, it's such a strong decision with the color that I would recognize a blue tea painting.
That's good to know. Abstract was just it's something I still really, really like to do. I guess I just go through phases. I don't know. But it's also the whole market thing. Like, apparently it's a lot bigger in Europe than it is here. Right
abstract
now.
work?
Yeah, so, I don't know. But I see some abstract, and I'm like, wow, that's a pink square. Nice. And, you know, so I guess I'm judgmental too, so, you know, everybody is.
Yeah, we've all got our limits to what we accept and what we can get into.
Like the blue square painting, the one that's just that one color blue, and then everybody did it.
Oh, was that Yves Klein? Yves Klein created his own blue.
There's now, yeah, in the pattern, and then somebody made the world's darkest black.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So, but no, it was like supposed to be really good because they did it in oil, and it was one consistent blue without having different. So apparently it was like some kind of mastery to be able to do that. But I don't see well enough to appreciate it, so I guess.
Well, have you seen the original? Maybe that would make a difference.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did.
Okay.
I forgot which museum I was in and saw it, but yeah, I did not.
That
it
didn't change
do
things.
It for me.
Yeah.
No.
When I first saw Andy Warhol pieces at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, it was his show traveled through there, or whoever curated it had a bunch of his screen printed works. And before that, I was familiar with the Campbell soup can and the Marilyn Monroe and the etc. like screen print stuff. I really didn't. I respected what I'd known of his. I didn't really think of him as an artist so much, like in the sense that I was accustomed to, until I saw that show, and I saw the screen printed. And I must not have seen reproductions of the actual work that was at that show, or maybe some of it. Anyway, I was blown away. I saw that he was painting through the screen, the color blends and the way it was laid on there. It was amazing. I looked at. I was moved by the works of art. They were completely like it. It was no doubt that he's an artist at that point. And before, I wasn't so sure. I thought, you know.
You get definitely some work you got to see in person to get it, and I think that may be the case with your work, actually.
Yeah.
Your work represents pretty well on Instagram. You can kind of get the vibe of it. Definitely more impact when you see it in person. But Forrest, because of partly it's the scale, right? Like the big plywood.
Yeah.
And because then you see there's like a physicality to the line, right? But so besides here, first of all, people should come to the shop to check out your work and to check out T's show this weekend.
Yes, they should.
I'll definitely be checking that out.
And where else can people find your work, Forrest?
I have a bit of stuff on my Instagram. It's at the Underground Forest.
Nice.
So that's the Underground Forest with 2 R's, and came up with the name during when I had the art studio in the barnyard. It was in the basement under a shoe store.
Nice.
And so it was really dark down there, and kind of like a cave. And we went out into the backyard where we would smoke and hang out, and was leaning against this rock, and I just thought of the name, the Underground Forest. So
Nice.
yeah.
It's a great name.
And that's one place to find stuff, I guess, for now. And there's a bit of stuff around here at the shop. There will be more. I plan to do some more work on that plywood piece, kind of dial it in.
And then what about are you doing screen printing stuff of your own?
I'm getting back into it. It's been a while that I haven't screen printed, and been appreciating it and the whole culture around it, and without personally being the one doing it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to getting back into it. I don't know, I guess I'm almost like maybe a bit intimidated by, or like having lost the flow and the initial like freedom. There's something I actually told Powers a long time ago, when I'm not clear on exactly how this all went. he's reminded me of it. I basically told him we were making a screen, and we were trying to come up with what the art was going to be, and I told him something to the effect that, you know, it doesn't even matter too much what the image is. Like, once it gets printed, it's kind of like magic. It's having the way the ink lays down on top of the fabric, it gives it this extra validity or quality, you know, because it's printed. It takes on its own life, and it just makes an image or a drawing way more cool once it gets printed. So, and that was part of my spirit of being like free and willing to run something without giving too much thought. And through the years, I know I've lost some of that. So maybe it's time for me to reapproach with the beginner's mind. You know?
Nice.
Or try something completely different with screen printing.
True.
Have you ever screen printed any of your art?
Yeah. And again, it's been a long time.
Because I could see, I don't know, maybe even just a little section of that painting would look. You could probably do like a series of shirts from that painting.
Yeah.
I would wear those.
I did this. It was probably my masterpiece out of the Underground Forest studio. Was a triptych, 3 foot by 10 foot pieces. Panels. Yeah, it started as a drop cloth that I stapled to the wall and painted on over probably about 5 weeks. Mostly airbrush, and then a bit of tempera and other like complete mixed media. However, there was a good bit of screen printing that I put a screen right up to the wall. Maybe had a friend help me hold it in position, and then screen printed and did repeat screen print on the piece. And the actual screen was pretty much just had the screen on the ground and took the emulsion, the photosensitive stuff that you burn the screen with, and dripped it on the screen and drew with the drips and stuff. And
you got to do some more of those.
Yeah.
I want some of those. So you actually drawing with the screen printing medium?
Yeah. Well, drawing, making the screen with the medium rather than coating it and developing in the darkroom, just dripping it right on there, letting it harden, and then printing through it.
I love that. It's a very unconventional use of that technology, right?
Yeah. And there's also the emulsion dries in this particular way where it looks almost plasticky, and I've done some stuff, not on that big triptych, on other pieces though, where pouring the emulsion itself on a piece and using it as paint. And that has a pretty cool look too. It looks, you know, you can see the difference in oil and acrylic or any medium. The emulsion just has its own look, so much different than any other. It almost maybe encaustic or the waxy type stuff.
I want to get into encaustic.
Yeah.
Encaustic and installation art are the two next things I want to do.
Talk about that. How is that? You mentioned that you put wax in some of the paint. Is that what's leading you towards encaustic?
No, I just seen people do it on YouTube and was like, I'd really like to do that, but like get an encaustic setup's a little bit pricey. Probably could do it now. I don't know how the wife will feel about that, but I just always have liked wax. I used to make candles, so I tried to make a Phantasmagoria candle and failed, but it's like with a big 5-gallon bucket of water, and then you drop the wax in and spin it. They look really cool. I could never make one, but I tried real hard. But.
What about the installation?
When I lived in Pennsylvania, there's this place in Pittsburgh called the Mattress Factory, and it's an installation art place. It's kind of just a hole in the wall somewhere. And it just was an amazing experience of the art that was there, and I really want to do it. You just need like a big place and a place to do it.
Maybe in Fort Ord before they tear all those buildings down.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we kind of did a little one here for the Heart Show last year, and I did a tire swing, and then I did one that was a record it was because it was Valentine's Day weekend. I did one that was 45 records, and I cut them all into hearts, and then did spin art from like a fair, so I just put them on a record player and you could drop paint on them. And
nice.
That was I guess I called it the love of music. So I just did like stuff from when I was a child, you know, rope swinging. And
that's right.
Did you do that at the fair?
No, we did it right here in the shop. We tied a tire swing to the ceiling where the mural is in the back.
And you get on
Wow.
the tire swing and hover over the piece, or?
Yep.
Nice.
So, and then the other was just like a record player with some 45s. So
That
when you go to
is
the fair and
funny
just
though,
spin
dude, because that almost reminds me of. Now that's super cool, but it also reminds me of The Big Lebowski. Don't know this scene?
I've seen it, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
What I have a
Okay.
bad memory.
So The Big Lebowski is partly making fun of art in a really funny way, though. As artists, you can't have to laugh at it. But there's this actual scene where there's this woman. She's a conceptual artist, and she does her art by swinging. And then
Oh, the one who was going to make the vagina? Was that movie? Or was that it?
I think that's part of it. Yeah. But it's classic. Just that that movie was kind of making fun of the idea that you can do anything for art, but genuinely you can, and that sounds super compelling. But what would be an ideal space for you to do a kind of installation? Like if you were looking for your installation space, what would it entail?
I mean, it would probably be something like an outdoor event. I'd like to do one at a music festival. Would be my favorite, especially if it was some Chicago house music. That would be my jam.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Why is that your jam?
Oh, I've been into house music since the early '90s, since I can remember, honestly. So I actually broke my ankle 4 years ago breakdancing.
Dude, you're way so many different things that I never would have guessed.
Yeah, so I don't break dance anymore, but
You're broke dance.
I broke dance. I just always liked house,
Yeah.
so.
Nice. Okay, so that put it out in the universe, and maybe that's something that will emerge. A house festival. Looking for installation artists out there. We got one right here, chomping at the bit. So Forrest, you've recently relocated back down here. How's that going? How's the transition?
It's going good. Yeah, it's a little weird finding my rhythm here with I got a motorcycle, a dirt bike, when I was up in Humboldt, and it needs a little bit of work, new tires, and so I haven't had my own transportation. And I was visualizing zipping around the peninsula on the dirt bike, and it will happen. It's just, yeah.
Good little way.
I miss my motorcycle, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So aside from that, the not having my own ride at the moment, Powers has actually been picking me up, bringing me over here to the shop recently, and
Nice.
kind of settling into finding my rhythm with starting to do some dye sublimation printing on metal, and I can print on key tags, mugs, poly shirts. It has to be polyester. It's a medium, a type of printing that I learned in Las Vegas. I worked at a print shop out there for a few years and learned a bunch. And
So you could offer some different techniques than are commonly found.
yeah,
For people who
metal
want-
printing. People are probably familiar with it when they see it, or when they see it. But it's different. It's really bright, full color, photographic printing process. And
I really want to get my desert on a big piece of metal.
okay.
Just so you know.
Yeah, let's look into it. I'm kind of relearning. It's like I was saying about screen printing. I have so much experience that it's almost maybe some of it can get in the way of like comparing myself to where I've been in the past and where other people are at with it, and getting overwhelmed. And so I'm kind of starting everything from scratch in a way, or looking to,
Well, I'll give you some advice that I got since I've been out of the water for 5 months and trying to get back, and I'm not where I used to be. And at first I was really frustrated, like I can't turn left anymore, and I don't know if it's because my ankle's messed up or whatever. But as long as I stayed in my head and compared myself to what I was then as to now, I wasn't having any fun.
Yeah.
At all. And when I was just like, I'm just going to go with the flow and do whatever, and if it happens, it happens, and you'll get your rhythm back.
Thanks for that too.
Yeah.
Needed to hear that for
yeah,
sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so Forrest, it's obviously a big part of who you are. But now this is interesting because you have the most unique urban rural combination that I've seen in a while, right? Because if I looked just at the artwork without meeting you, know anything about your story, it looks urban to me. Like it has the sensibility of a city.
Yeah.
And that's probably from the skateboarding background. But then you're also a wild man of the woods.
It's true.
So and so you combine those two with skateboarding in the woods.
Yeah, with the riding dirt wheels. That's when we were hanging out in Big Sur as teenagers. That's where we wanted to be, but we couldn't skateboard out there. And then when I found out about dirt wheels, I found out best of both worlds. We can be up in Paul, Colorado Canyon, up Green Ridge, or up Partington, or wherever out in Big Sur, and skateboard down the dirt roads, on the trails, on the dirt, and that opened up a whole new world for me and our group of friends too. We would have dirt boards around, and when we went on hikes or went to parties and our friends' properties, oftentimes you'd be going up a dirt road, and it would take you along some perfect spots where you could ride, and then turns out California is the best in the world from what I've seen, but in my travels I found other spots. Dirt wheels are rad because you can ride on rough, even paved. You can get around really good with them, and then ride in places you wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Amazing, so fun. And you guys have any sponsors who are getting behind this project?
Well, Platypus Skateboards, my cousin Sarosh, has actually been making dirt wheels. The best dirt wheels that we found were the XT wheels. XT wheels with a Z. And I think they were the first, and then there were some knockoffs with a different tread pattern and heavier wheel, and anyway, XT wheels started in the 80s sometime. I need to get better on the whole history timeline of this thing, but that's when they were first around, and then maybe towards the late 90s, these other knockoff coming out of China or wherever wheels, I think they messed with the market, and that XT wheels company maybe changed hands and went under.
Yeah.
And we kept it alive though, like by scouting them out. From friends would hit us up like, "Yo, I got some in my garage," or we find them on eBay and garage sales, and then I don't know how it's been within the last few years. My cousin Sarosh got in touch with the original dude, the inventor of the XT wheels dirt wheel, and came up with a
no way.
With a partnership, like a licensing agreement where he pays X amount for each wheel that he makes. And so now they're making them in LA with Goodyear rubber. I think they had to find a recipe. The first batch came out kind of funny that had to get discarded because it was they thought they used the formula for like a Tonka truck or a toy car, like a RC car type of wheel, but it's a special rubber they developed back then. And so anyway, Platypus Skateboards is making XT wheel dirt wheels now.
Nice.
So
and then
in small batches at a time. They go to skate shops up and down the coast, and even in Japan, they're selling them out there at times.
Wow. And they've got a website you can check out?
Yeah, Platypus.
Instagram as well?
Instagram, Platypus Skateboards.
Have you seen those shark wheels?
I've seen the shark board with the fin on it here. You seen that one? But no.
Yeah.
Is it not quite
it's supposed to go on snow, dirt, ice.
I guess I don't know about shark wheels.
They just come up on my feeds, I don't know.
And it's 4 wheels?
Yeah, it's a skateboard.
Yeah, skateboard shark wheels.
Yeah.
What color? How big?
They're
On snow and dirt and ice. Wow.
I don't know. You might want to look at them.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah. I'll skate on some snow.
I've got to get back to prepping for the show, but this has been great, guys.
And we're going to wrap it up. So that was a very fun conversation, and thank you both for being here today, getting to know your stories a little bit more, and hopefully we'll continue the conversations.
Awesome.
So I feel like there's about 100 things I want to know more about of each of you. So thanks for sharing some of your story today.
My
and
pleasure.
Folks out there, come on down to the shop in Monterey. If you have any screen printing needs, Chris Powers Screen Printing is here, and Forrest is. Are you doing?
I'm getting up and going with the sublimation.
So any businesses out there who are looking for something a little bit different, some screen printing on metal, you know where to inquire. You can find Forrest at the Underground Forest on Instagram with 2 R's, and you can find T at Blue T Studios on Instagram, and his work will be up here at the shop
12th to the 14th.
12th to the 14th. Yeah, Fridays 5 to 9, and Saturday and Sundays 12 to 5, I believe.
Are they doing it with like waves of people coming through?
Yeah, they have like an RSP thing. So there's a free tier, there's a print tier, and then there's like a wine, cheese, and print tier.
So how do people sign up for that?
You go to the shopmonterey.com, and it's right on the homepage.
You hear that, folks? It's shopmonterey.com. Sign up, come through, and check out some of the chromatic surrealism by Blue T Studios right here at the shop in Monterey.
Gonna be good.
That's right.
Thank you both for your time today. This is another episode of the E&J podcast. Wishing you all good energy and lots of joy out there. Till next time, peace.